This is the Nomad Futurist podcast, a podcast about the evolution of technology, society, and transformation. Connect with us, share your thoughts with us at nomadfuturist.com. Let's get this started. Here are Phil and Nabil. Hello. Welcome to Nomad Futurist. This is your host, Nabil Mahmood from Kona, Hawaii.
This is your co-host, Philip Koblenz from Montclair, New Jersey.
And I'm Avner Papouchado. They told me to be here. I'm in the middle. I'm in Manhattan Beach, California.
Avner, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. Let's start to get to know you a little bit. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, I am middle-aged, data center executive.
I feel like this is a dating show.
Yeah. I'm looking for the wife I already have. or a few of the kid girls I already have. I run a data center company. I went to school for music and continued buying opportunistic real estate. And from opportunistic real estate, I somehow fell into this thing called data centers. And I find myself in this world right now.
So how does that work? You majored in music. You're actually the second, I guess third, if you count. Well, we had a set of guests. We had twins, the twins from Packet, who got acquired from Equinix, who had a musical background also. How do you go from music to buying real estate? How does that happen?
I grew up in a real estate family, and I love music. I still do. I played growing up. Kind of naturally went. I grew up in Israel. After I finished service in the army, I went to New York and studied music, which was a lot of fun. Played around New York for a while. Decided I love music, but I was a guitar player who couldn't sing. And I had the opportunity to play with a lot of my heroes and do a lot of the things that I wanted to do, but I didn't really feel. I looked at the lifestyle, at what I would have if I would be as good as they were. And I'm not saying I'm good as they are. And the travel to different city every day and doing this thing, and I just wasn't sure I was going to like it. I like music. I'm not sure I would like the life around it.
You wouldn't necessarily have liked it as a career where you'd have to be touring and all that.
Right. I think I like it too much to make it a career.
So what was the turning point? I mean, so you mentioned that music, real estate, data center. Tell us a little bit about how did you get involved in real estate? I mean, it sounds like that you had your family in real estate.
Yeah. I grew up around real estate, and when I finished music school, it was really a terrible time around U.S. Real estate. It was
just give us the year. Just give us the year. It's fine.
What? It was 92. Savings and loan debacle. I was in New York with Mayor David Dinkins. I should have just stayed.
Dinkins. This is a PG show. Dinkins.
Sorry about that. Yeah, passed away recently. You could have bought. I could have bought anything in New York and done as well. But somehow I saw that apartments in Texas were cheap and couldn't get any cheaper. So I bought as many as I could, borrowed and whatever I could, and bought apartments, and it turned out really well.
So you went from you left you didn't want to participate in what I guess would have been considered the family business. Moved to New York to become a musician, which I assume is every Jewish family's nightmare. I
don't know. Bernstein did pretty well.
Yeah. Well, okay. Fine. One.
No, there's a long list.
But he wasn't a guitarist. You ever heard of a Jewish guitarist? Gene Simmons? Maybe. All right. So you moved.
About Jewish guitarists.
Right. There should be an Adam Sandler. There should be an Adam Sandler song about it. So You moved to New York. You go to music school. You decide I can't be a professional musician, and you decide you're going to get into essentially the family business.
Yeah, but
here.
They weren't here.
Not here.
The family's in Israel.
So what type of real estate did they invest in, and how did that differ from? I mean, was it aligned in any way?
They did not. They mostly developed and did hotels and really development. That was the first generation to buy something that was already done, or conversion of and so forth. And so they started looking at the U.S. and I pretty much executed it for them. Got it done for them. I had.
So you were the U.S. You were the U.S. based Papouchado. You're the U.S. one.
The U.S. based guy.
The only one with kids that can run for president.
No, cannot run for president. I'm as guilty as Obama of being,
Okay, the kids, your kids.
Actually, a little more than Obama, just a tiny bit. He's actually born here. But yeah. Kids could run for president.
This is going to be the best. This is going to be the best podcast ever.
Well, it absolutely does sound like it. I mean, it sounds like that I've got not one but two Joe Rogans on the podcast. So let's step it further. So for folks that are listening, Avner is the chief executive officer of a company called ServerFarm Realty, basically in the data center space. So Avner, from what we know about you, you've been in that space for about 11 years. Real estate for about 25 years or so, roughly, give or take. What was the turning point? How did you get involved in technology?
So we bought these apartments in Texas, and it went really well. After a while, we sold them because I come from a place where they build buildings from concrete. This was all made out of wood, and I just couldn't see wood lasting that long. Somebody gave me a lot of money for these wooden structures, so I decided to sell them. And I sat around this kind of thinking, what am I going to do when I grow old? And we've done a bunch of stuff. We built condos, developed office building, did a bunch of net lease transactions. And I developed an office building, and it was right around the time of the Telecom Deregulation Act, when everybody became a CLEC, right, a competitive local exchange carrier.
So is that 96? Right?
That is around 96.
Okay.
You're a historian. Like your dates is amazing.
Come on. Can't believe we've only made it 4 years. All right, come on. All right, fine.
All right. So, hey, 96, we basically, somebody built a CLEC in my building. And they didn't ask for any tenant improvement money. They just built the thing. And I looked at it and said, what is this? What are they doing?
Is that building also in Texas?
Yeah.
Okay.
My whole life was in Texas then, and I was bored.
I should have guessed from the accent. What do I know?
Yeah. We built. So I looked at it. What are they doing? Why are they doing? What is this? Finally, I saw this thing called the internet coming around. I looked at it. I said, this could be a thing. This internet thing may work. How is that working? Where are people doing it? What's going on? So I looked at another building. That was an old Levi's manufacturing facility that seemed to have the right bones. It was a big building with a bunch of telecommunications next to it and so forth. And I bought the thing, for $40 a foot, and we got lucky and made a deal with AT&T for $10 a square foot. And they.
So for those of you that think Avner just lost $30 a foot, he bought the building for $40 a foot entirely, and then he leased it to $10 a foot as a recurring number. So he would get that over and over again.
Yeah. So I leased it to AT&T, and then we did another 4 or 5 of these around the country, which was then AT&T Wireless. Which later on became Singular, and then AT&T Wireless again was sold, bought. Everything stayed the same. Just a bunch of bankers in New York made a bunch of money.
What are you pointing to me for? I'm not a banker. I happen to be adjacent to New York.
Yeah, you're still charging $10 a square foot.
Yeah.
So that building was really the first building that we bought as a data center, and leased it out as a shell. And we looked at it, and we decided it could be a really interesting business. But then there was a mall in Texas that all of us that knew it wouldn't spend $100 a foot for it. We knew it was going bad. It was a bad building. And one day, a big investment firm called Whitehall out of New York came and bought the thing for $200 a foot. That was around 99, and they put a big sign on it that said data center. I looked at it and I basically said, "That's it. The business is gone. These people are crazy. There's no way this is worth this." And I told my guys, "That's it. We're not buying anything empty. Let's just look at this business for a while." And then the telecom crash came. The dot bomb happened, and it went from the future of the world. Everything's going to be digital. Everything's going to be great. Technology is going to be everything. To every company had .com at the end, just like there were Motors at the beginning of the century before.
Yep, back to it was going to be back to two phones and two cups in a string. Back to rotary phones. The internet was not going to work.
Everybody thought it was terrible. It doesn't work anymore. That's when we started going on a buying spree for me, and bought a lot of telecom buildings with short life on it, with short 3-year, 2-year lease remaining, knowing that the customers can't really leave. And there's a conversation there. So we've done that through the beginning of the 2000s.
I think if you talk about like people that have been unbelievably successful in our space and really any industry, it's those that tend to kind of double down and triple down during these time periods of volatility. You could point to 92, you could point to 2008, you could point to, back in the 70s when New York was gonna, be given up. It bred.
You can talk to 2021 when New York was going to be
exactly. Well, that was. It was so short-lived that
it's still there.
Yeah, let's hope. I assume Avner is going to pick up all the buildings in Midtown that'll be empty as a consequence of the pandemic.
Yeah. Nobody's going to New York again ever. It's not gonna.
In the meantime, every one of your buildings was financed out of New York. I heard Whitehall. I heard some other guys from New York. My God, everybody needs to be in New York.
So by the way, that's a part of it. I for a long time held that belief that value investing and investing in things out of touch was the thing. I actually don't still hold that belief. I think I have it. Investing in growing companies and looking at business really has to do with your view of the world, right? If your view of the world is to find this one rock nobody now knows is valuable, knowing that one day it's going to become a diamond, it can get pretty heavy. You can end up with a lot of rocks. It's easier to figure out where the world is going to be, where the momentum is, and actually jump on it a little later. And understand it's a momentum that even though it's expensive, it's going to keep going. I have a problem myself believing the trends are going to keep going. I always think the things are going to end. I always think of Niagara Falls, right? The water's got to end one time. It keeps falling. The water has to end. There's got to be an end to this.
What a pessimist! My God, this is taking.
But there hasn't been an end.
Right. And well, I think two things. One, if you had to say what caused you to buy those buildings, was it because after the .com burst, there were these opportunities, and at that time you believed in opportunistic investing, and these things were being just given away because everything was distressed, and you bought it, or did you buy those because you believed that technology was the future and that there was going to be this possible use case, or did you just get lucky?
I believe both, and the third one is true as well. I believed that the building were a good value. I believed in the business, and I got lucky many, many times. If somebody would, if I could trade brains for luck, I would do it every day of the week. If there was a program, a government program, like the gun giveaway.
Well,
I am joining that program.
I think it's in Ireland. I think only in Ireland because they have those 4-leaf clovers. I think that's the only place.
Yeah, well, that makes you a very smart and intelligent businessman. The question that I have for you is, technology, it's kind of like out there, particularly for somebody that's an investor that's not from the space. What was that turning point? How did you decide to take that massive risk for not knowing the intricacies and the complexities of the data center marketplace?
First of all, there The intricacies were just getting built. And by the way, they still are getting built. We are at a very, very young business. This business is one of the reasons I'm still here is because data centers are one of the most inefficient businesses that exist in real estate. It's one of the most inefficient real estate that exists. It's the only real estate I know that's being run at 30% of capacity. That people don't know how much space to order. They don't know what to do. It's something that nobody really wants. They all need. It's at the bottom of all these things that, people want to run applications. People want to run companies that run with technology, with the help of technology. They really don't want to run data centers. And now there's cloud and that whole scenario, which kind of happened before. And I see a lot of those companies. They're very smart and they're trying to standardize and commoditize things. It's going to be very difficult to do. And I am very intrigued by this inefficiency, making this industry as efficient as possible. And even though there's huge investments in data centers, when you look at data centers, the data center cost compared to the IT stack that sits in it, compared to all the computers and routers and fiber and things that sit in it, it's minute. It's nothing. I mean, people fight us about, dollars per kW, and then they use 30% of it, and they make mistakes. They're inefficient throughout the whole program. If we can bring efficiency to it and help them be efficient, this is an unbelievable business. The run rate is crazy.
So that's what's amazing. I think when people have come on our podcast before and discussed efficiency within a data center, they're typically talking about, how many kW does it take to cool a particular kW of, active production load. When you talk about capacity within a data center, you're talking about it from the fundamental, real estate point of view. Like how much of your world are you actually using to do the work that you need to do? Right. And I think that, there's that's what makes you utterly unique in our world, because you're kind of this, real estate tycoon, like version 3. But you look at the real estate world from this kind of operational perspective. Most people that own real estate would be happy that, their tenants are only using 30% of the space because they're contracted for more of it. Right. So, what is it about making the space more efficient, making the utilization more efficient, that you think is the future, as opposed to the traditional real estate view is just sell the building and collect the money?
Because I think, look, at the end of the day, my job as a service provider, and we're service providers, I'm providing a service to my client, is to provide the best service possible and give them really what is a solution to their problem, which is a big headache in the physical part of IT. When you run IT, you usually think in time periods that are 2-3 years, application time frame and so forth. You really can think about 10 years and 15 years, which the capital items which we work in really work are the time frames, actually 25 years and so forth. And my job is to make the physical as easy as possible for them. And if I can make the physical very, very easy for them and take that problem away, they will never let me go, because it will not be a problem. I will not be a guy trying to sell them stuff that doesn't work. I will sell them things that work.
I don't want to make this pitch sound dirty, but you want to take over the physical in order to make yourself more sticky. Is that what you're saying? Sorry, go ahead.
I'm trying to use the physical to actually lubricate their business, to make it smoother.
I knew it was going to get worse.
I'll reel it in. Avner, what I'm getting out of this conversation is that you believe that it's our responsibility to make this world a better place, to address the digital transformation, the technology adoption, whilst addressing carbon footprint and efficiencies. Is that fair? Is that around the lines of what?
It's exactly right. I think I think the world needs compute. Compute is a very new industry. The world does not yet know how it's going to use compute and how to use it efficiently. There's a couple of things. My job, our company's job, is to look at the physical side of all this and make the physical as sustainable and used to the highest degree possible in order to serve this. And with that, I'm talking, as you see, compute now exists like in basically spokes and hubs. There's these big places that sit in the middle of nowhere, really, and more it's going to become around energy sources and sustainable energy sources at that. The big data centers are not going to become a real estate problem; they're a power problem, right? They're going to be around big energy sources that are sustainable to do the big non-latency compute. And then there's the latency compute that needs to be in inner cities, close to people, well connected, critical infrastructure that will have people's life hanging on at the end of it. And all of this has to have really smart real estate operators that understand technology and can really translate between the technology people and the real estate people and the physical things. And that's where we see ourselves at the end of the day, to be a translation layer between the physical and the people that run applications.
Yeah, I mean, it totally does make sense, right? So your analogy about Niagara Falls, the water is going to potentially end at some point in time. I think the bigger issue that really resides, the energy resource is potentially going to end at some point in time before we run out of water. You touched on a couple of things over here, latency and getting close to the user base, right? So as of today, where you stand within your organization, you touched briefly on connected devices, you touched on edge computing and 5G and whatnot. What's your future goals? I mean, how are you looking at the industry on a growing basis? I mean, where are opportunities that the listeners and the subscribers of the Nomad Futurist podcast should potentially look into or invest some time into?
Depends. Depends who the listeners are. First of all, it's a great business that has a lot of opportunity in it. If you're a person, it's funny. I also fly airplanes. I have a plane. I fly plane, and I flew with a young pilot the other day. That basically was an engineer. He was an he was an aeronautics engineer that decided to be a pilot because he liked the office, right? He liked the cockpit because it has good views and didn't want to do spreadsheets all day long.
Seems like a relevant excuse for a relevant pastime for an aeronautics engineer to be in a cockpit.
Yeah. And he said he likes it better. And it's funny because life of pilots, it's a lot like the life of a musician. It's attractive at once. You think, I'll travel a lot, I'll see different places, but then you start after a while to forget the places you've been to. You call cities by wrong names. Well,
I'll give you a personal example. I mean, I've been to 106 countries throughout my life, and I can tell you airport codes, but I can't tell you the name of the city. So it's all relatable.
Yeah, so it's that it's that kind of world. I think that people like that, a lot of people that come out of aviation school and that get jaded about their work, data center world is very good for them. It's very methodical. It's the same kind of discipline, the same kind of checklist working, being very precise, and you get to go home every day, and you get to stay in similar places. And if you decide you want to get entrepreneurial, it doesn't end. It's going to keep going. And it's a very, very young industry. It's like going into the automotive industry in the 40s. That's kind of where we are.
For anyone that thinks that people that run data centers are just geeky or old fuddy-duddies or whatever, we now have a real estate mogul pilot guitarist that runs ServerFarm Realty. So I think that, you pretty much checked every cool box there is, right? You're a damn pilot.
Yeah, there's a couple of Nabil. So what do you do in Hawaii? Why'd you move to Hawaii? What's in Hawaii?
Well, there's a full podcast for that.
We're gonna turn this podcast around. Nabil, answer the man's question.
There's a full podcast for that, but the idea behind moving to Hawaii was to regain life and an opportunity to relive again. And it's an opportunity for me to redefine my life and potentially help and pass on anything good that I've done or accomplished in my life to the next generation, and be a change agent and be the voice and embrace that voice.
Do you surf?
Not a certified rescue diver, however. So I dive, and flying planes is actually on the list. Hopefully one of these days.
Oh my God, you guys are nuts.
Very cool. I surf as well. That's why.
Of course you do. Of course you do. I forgot one checkbox. Yeah. Are you a snowboarder?
If it's powder.
You're so cool. You should have long hair. That's the only thing you're missing.
Should have any hair.
Yeah. You're preaching to the choir. So, what's interesting is that, you talk about, technology from the standpoint of, you were exposed to it through all of these things. Have you always had an interest in technology, or did it just evolve from all of these, the exposure through buying the buildings and getting involved in telecom and kind of the natural evolution of having to use technology in your everyday life?
I wasn't one of the Apple II people at my high school. So I wasn't one of those guys. Were you?
I don't know if I'd say I was more of an Apple II GS person, but I'm a little younger than you.
Yeah. Okay.
I probably was the kid that you beat up. I'm sure. There's no question.
I did not. I'm
still the kid you beat up.
I did not beat up kids. I was actually I did not. I was actually pretty nice as a kid.
Wait until you're an adult. Terrifying. The guy is terrifying.
Yeah, no. I actually try to beat up. I'm more of I have the Robin Hood point of view most of the time. I beat up on institutions mostly.
So not a technology kid growing up, or
not a technology as far as programming and as far as that. I do like technology as far as engineering, as far as big picture infrastructure, which we're in. I don't see myself ever being, software. We develop software in the company, we use it, and so forth. I let the customers do the very complicated things, right? The actual going behind the servers, doing all the AI and that kind of thing, trying to compete with our brains and to be smarter than the human beings. I guess it's their job. I'm willing to give them a fight for their money.
It's too hot back there anyway. You don't want to go behind the servers. It's always better in front of the servers.
Yeah. But I have to tell you that there's a ton of opportunity in this business as I see the world, right? So ServerFarm works in the US, Canada, Europe, and now we're in the Middle East. We're in Israel. I'm actually going back there again next week. And
for full 360 degrees, it's back to where it started.
I have to tell you, virgin land, it's unbelievable. This place that is producing so much technology to the world, so much of the name a main company in this industry, and they have development in Israel. It's like in major development, and it's a small country. It's not India that has billions of people, so there must be some brilliant guys at the top. The amount to percolate to the top comes from very little.
We had a guest on the podcast a few episodes ago. This guy named Yuval Bachar. One of the questions I asked him is, and I'll ask you the same thing. Why do you think there's so much of that innovation coming out of Israel? What is it about, the Israeli culture or education system or what have you that creates the minds, that create so much of the disruptive technology that we use in our daily lives without taking, of course you take the credit for it, you get swallowed up by Google, et cetera, you make a lot of money on it, but it doesn't host it there because, effectively the customers are all here. So that's likely why it ends up being hosted here. But what is it about Israel?
First of all, I think it's about it's the whole world. It's not the Israelis are unique. It's just that Jews have been literate for a long time. Is really a big part of it. I mean, they've been literate for a long time, and they sat in rooms studying Bible, reading Bible, and studying it for a long time. And after a while, they got bored reading Bible, so they started arguing about it. They started saying, "What does this mean?" And the paper said the color was white. So they said, "It means the color was white." He said, No. If they wanted to say the color was white, they wouldn't just say the color was right. If it said it that clearly, it probably means something else. It probably means the color should have been blue, but it's white because something else is wrong. And because of that, they learned to argue. And Jews and Israelis are some of the most argumentative people in the world. And it's hard to tell them that something is a certain way. They would always try to prove why you're wrong and why it must be another way. And that way of thought actually creates a lot of entrepreneurship.
I think it's the curiosity and always trying to figure out what why are you saying what you're saying and what do you really mean by what you said. All right, great.
And especially when you give them a price to go, they
We could do a stand-up routine on the anatomy of a Jew or an Israeli. I don't think it matters. I think it's one and the same in terms of this conversation. Perfect.
Yeah.
So your family buys real estate, hotels. They like people as tenants. You came out here and ended up in a situation where you buy these buildings and you don't want people as customers or tenants. You want computers as customers and tenants. What does the other part of the Papouchado family think of the server arm of the empire?
The basic thought is show me the money.
So they haven't bought into the premise.
What have you done for me lately, baby?
All right. So I see your family is like everybody else's family. Perfect.
Yeah. We get along. It's very well. I think it's very well balanced actually between the two. At the end of the day, computers don't love you. It's all people. It's a people business. We serve people. I provide services to people. I try to make life easy for people. That's why they would call on me again. And we try to do. We wake up every day thinking, how can we? And a lot of it is very delicate because my customer thinks they're the smartest people on earth. And if I see something they can do better, it takes me years to explain that to them. And a lot of time they get, it's very easy to offend the guy when you say, "Hey, did you ever try to do it this way?" So that's my job. My job is to actually change things for the better, to be the best operator they have, to have them come back. And it's taken a while. I think it's finally starting to catch in some places. And once it does, our job will be to never let it go, to make it sure we perform.
You had mentioned internet could be a thing. Well, it is a thing. How has this journey been for you, both personally and helping other people?
It's hard to talk about the internet in past tense. It's very present and it's the beginning. I still think it's going to be a thing. Hopefully, it's going to become a better thing. Hopefully, it's going to become a thing that lives to its potential of making us smarter and making us have more points of views and not just land in our own little areas of interest and get people a more narrower point of view. It was built around giving people opportunities. I hope it doesn't take away opportunities, right? Which is a scary part, but that's little nuances. The big piece about the internet to me is that it's just the beginning. I mean, now we have, kind of bad quality video. We're on Zoom right now. You guys are going to be
This
sitting
is
in
as
my
good.
living.
This is as good as I look. So there is no
Yeah.
better quality.
No, you're going to be sitting in my living room here in a couple of years. It's going to be, an actual sit down where it feels real. I mean, it'll be able to do. The infrastructure is not there yet.
You see some of that stuff there now. You saw the like Oprah interviewed Obama, and they were but it looked like they were sitting in the same room, but they were like in like across the country.
Yeah. So Oprah does it. Technology can do it.
Everyone's going to be Oprah. Everyone's going to be Oprah. I guess that's the
developers, and she does it from Hawaii too. She's learned. She's one of the smart people. Whenever you give developers power, they will use it. Our job is to provide them the power. Part of this industry's job is to provide them the power to make them creative.
Yeah, we're the canvas.
What I would like you to share briefly is, what would you do, or what advice would you give the young Avner, knowing what you know today, and based on your trials and tribulations, what would you do different?
I think people have to let life happen to them. I think most of them know it. I think let me phrase it a different way. I was lucky. I grew up with a pretty broad point of view. I think that if I can I can give young people any gift at all, would be a point of view. Would be a feeling that they can rise around everyday humanity, and they really could do anything. They could go around and are able to really do the things they want to do. They could live in Hawaii and if they're interesting enough and start podcasts that people want to listen to, they can buy and sell real estate based on an idea that there's more value in it than they see. They can be a banker in New York that really does nothing but shuffle paper around and connect people that need money to people that have money.
I think you lost a couple of your bankers. Sorry, guys.
I tell them that daily. I mean, a toll booth. So, I mean, there's really options in life, and people do it, and people are not better than you. And there's a way to get things done. So I would love to give people this idea that there is something greater, and the something greater is not the pretty girl with a bunch of Photoshop pretty girl on Instagram. It's really the possibilities to be able to fulfill your soul. It exists.
What do you think the biggest limitation is for the younger generation? Do you think it's fear? Do you think it's lack of imagination? Do you think it's just, boredom or complacency? What is it?
I actually think that a lot of them, I think the biggest challenge is that they think that images are real right now, because there's a lot of images-based things. But I think the smart guys will see through it, and I think they're going to be better than us. I actually do think that the younger generation is going to be better than we are. Me and you, Phil, are a little bit in a weird generation. We're not quite baby boomers. We're kind of in between. The baby boomers were a lot like this generation. They fought the system, this and that, and now they all vote Republican. Who the hell knows? I mean, it's hard to predict.
I'm going to try to see if the audience can tell what Avner's politics are by the end of this thing. I think this is a perfect place to wrap it up, because we started the conversation with Niagara Falls is going to run out of water, and we ended the conversation with
by the way,
the next generation is going to be way better than us. You guys
missed that point. It's not going to run out of water. A guy like me thinks it may, but it will not. So sometimes supply is endless. I mean, for our lives.
Oh my God. I should introduce you to Avner from like 45 minutes ago. You would love that guy.
Avner, thank you very much for taking the time to join us today. This has been phenomenal. Really enjoyed to get to know you. Any last words of advice to the younger folks that are listening to this podcast?
Or the baby boomers like myself?
I think it's getting better. I think I truly think that opportunities in this world is getting better. I see many places where this whole thing is very young. And it's funny, every time you think you saw the last thing, and nobody's going to ever be as big as Microsoft and Amazon, and that's it. We've met the giant that's going to eat the world. If that happens, look up IBM. and AT&T.
Right.
You know,
and it's
one thing I can bet on is change.
I think that's why people should be students of history, right? I mean, if you think that the world is finite and this is the construct of the world, look at the world 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15 years ago. You would have never guessed that right now in New Jersey we have these cicadas emerging. The Brute X cicadas all over the country. They're talking about these 17-year cicadas that are coming out that have been buried underground for 17 years. If I did a podcast with one of those cicadas, I'm not losing my mind. But if I did a podcast with one of those cicadas, they have no idea what an iPhone is. They have no idea, like all of these things that have happened in the last, 15, 17 years are earth-shattering that we take for granted now. But,
right.
It's a blip. It's no time at all.
It'll change.
Anyway, thanks so much for doing this. I assume we now have a lifelong fan in the Nomad Futurist podcast, and we'll be at the top of your podcast listening to the extent that happens. And what can I tell you? Thank you.
It will happen. Thank you very much. I really appreciate it, guys. It was fun.
Right.
This has been great. Nothing lasts forever. Markets will come back, currencies will rebound, businesses will go on, and we'll all move on. That could happen next week, next month, or next year. I'm confident that those who prepare rather than panic will come out of this stronger. Thank you for joining us. This has been brought to you by Nomad Futurist. Check us online at nomadfuturist.com.